This is Jamie TKV. You're watching Sporting Icons. You don't need to be anywhere else.
Okay, so Frank Warren spoke to his usual crowd of TalkSport, and he said that the Joe Joyce Zhilei Zhang rematch is looking to be on in September. Didn't say where, but if I'm Joe Joyce, I would probably look at that rematch and potentially have it on in China for a number of reasons. I suppose one of them would be to get revenge on the guy who beat you, or do it in front of his own people, like he done to you. So that'd be the first one. And of course, a rematch in China would be massive. Huge money. People in China will show up, turn out, and put their money down to watch their own guys. Especially at a heavyweight division. I mean, how many heavyweights do China have in the professional game? Right? So that would be a huge, huge fight, i.e. huge money. So if I'm Frank Warren on that as well, I'm looking at that one, no doubt. Now, that said, a lot of people always say, don't take the rematch and whatever else. Because whenever somebody loses a fight and they have a rematch clause, people say, don't take the rematch, because in the rematch, it always goes as it done in the first fight. Now, it's very easy to say that because either you're going to be right or you're going to be wrong. There's no in-between when it comes to boxing, okay? So it's very easy to say that, but I disagree. I disagree with that. And again, I understand when people say that they don't like rematch clauses, but again, for me, on this particular situation, I don't see a problem with it because it's not interfering with anything. It's not holding anything up. The WBO mandatory position isn't going to be called until after Filip Hrgović gets his world title shot. So there's plenty of time to play with. No reason in the world why I can't have a rematch. Joe Joyce gave Zhilei Zhang a voluntary, so he's entitled to a rematch. Now, when people say don't take the rematch because the same thing will happen in the rematch after what happened in the first fight, I mean, I don't get that because a lot of times it doesn't. A lot of times it doesn't. Joe Joyce can make the adjustments and he can beat Zhilei Zhang. He can. I'm not saying he will, I'm saying that he can. I mean, imagine if fighters before who lost a fight and then never took the rematch. Where would they be? How would their careers look? What would have happened if Anthony Joshua hadn't have rematched Andy Ruiz Jr.? What if Lee Wood didn't rematch Mauricio Lara? Tyson Fury even didn't rematch John McDermott. I know he didn't lose the first fight, but he did, but got given a decision. But then battered him in the rematch to pretty much put that talk to bed. Carl Froch rematched Mikhail Kessler after getting his ass handed to him in the first fight. Dillian White beat Alexander Povetkin in the rematch. Lennox Lewis beat Oliver McCall in the rematch. He also beat Hasim Rahman in the rematch. Muhammad Ali defeated Leon Spinks, Ken Norton and Joe Frazier in the rematch. Imagine if they didn't take the rematch because their thought was, well, if I rematch them, the same thing's going to happen in the rematch as to what happened in the first fight. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes it does, of course, but there's no reason in the world why rematches shouldn't happen. I know it's a big controversial issue, that one. So, some circumstances, I can certainly get it. Now, granted, some of the fights that I've just named to you, they weren't immediate rematches. Joe Joyce Zhilei Zhang is an immediate rematch. So, if I'm Joe Joyce, I'm certainly taking that rematch, and he should beat him. Zhilei Zhang lost to Jerry Forrest. He did. And he got a draw. He got gifted a draw. Jerry Forrest won that fight. So, Joe Joyce can certainly beat Zhilei Zhang. He can. People say how Zhilei Zhang beat Filip Hrgović and he got robbed. I agree with that one. I think that Zhilei Zhang did beat Filip Hrgović. But that was a Filip Hrgović whose father had recently passed away. And Filip Hrgović, who was training in America, went to Saudi Arabia, a totally opposite time zone, too late before the fight. So he was jet lagged. You can see he didn't do too much media because he was sleeping. He missed out on a lot of media. So that wasn't a fit, right, and primed Filip Hrgović. So Joe Joyce can do it. By the way, I'm not dismissing Zhilei Zhang. I think he's a very good fighter, he is. But Joe Joyce should beat him. He should. And it's not like Zhilei Zhang knocked him cold out or anything like that, like dominated him and then knocked him out. He did dominate him, that's for sure. He dominated him with a jab and that big left. Joe Joyce apparently was struggling to find sparring partners, southpaw ones. His trainer, Ismail Salas, was doing pad work with him before the ring walk in an orthodox position. So I don't know what was going on. Ismail Salas, his trainer, said that the cut man in the corner wasn't managing the swelling on Joe Joyce's eye properly. Had he took action earlier, the eye wouldn't have closed up the way that it did so quick, and then Joe Joyce would have took over as the second half of the fight neared in. Maybe that would have happened. Maybe it wouldn't have done. Maybe Zhilei Zhang would have knocked him cold out. We don't know. That's why we need this rematch. Listen, I'm looking forward to it. Some people will say don't do it and whatever else. Why? If Joe Joyce doesn't take the rematch, where does he go? What does he do? Who's going to fight him? He's got nothing to offer. He doesn't bring big paydays. And he doesn't have an interim title. He doesn't have a mandatory position. He has nothing to offer. So who's going to fight him? Fight Zhilei Zhang, beat Zhilei Zhang, and then Joe Joyce's reset where he can say, I've beaten every man that I've ever faced. Much like Lennox Lewis. If he hadn't rematched Rahman McCall and, of course, that draw with Holyfield. Lennox Lewis sits there at the end of his career saying, I defeated every man that I ever faced. So anyway, September, we'll have to wait and see where it is. I imagine it's probably going to be in the UK, but in my opinion, it should be in China. Should be. You want to make the money? You want to get proper revenge? Do it in China. But we'll see. Anyway, my thoughts. Drop me yours. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you next video.